Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Unlocked. I'm your host, Tracy Wilson. And as you can see, I always go the wrong way. It's over here. My very special friend, Vickie Helm, with me at the helm today. So pretty lucky to have her on the show. I get to kind of call on her when I go, hey, let's talk about blah, blah, blah topic. And she usually says, yeah, all right, give me a few minutes and I'll be right there and let's talk about that. So today I wanted to sort of frame this show up because we're going to go in a few different places with this. So I've called the show, or the topic today that we're going to talk about is like how to come up with show topic ideas, even when you're hit with creator's block or when you have to do things kind of at the last minute. Let's say a guest is not able to turn up and you've got to do your show. So as you know, on the Unlock show and even on Vickie Helm's show, the Coffee Break show, they are regular scheduled shows that go live, I'm going to say come hell or high water, at the scheduled time every single week. So whether you have a guest with you or not, you are going to click that button and you are going to go live. So often we also get asked, how do you come up with topic ideas? Like, what's the process that you guys use? So I want to talk you guys through that. It's some of the things that we also teach inside of our program called Influence and Authority Method. And a lot of this is also one of those things that hold a lot of people back from actually doing their show because they're like, have I got enough content to talk about? Could I do that every single week, twice a week, potentially, and have enough things to consistently speak about and that are interesting enough to actually hold an audience? So question we get asked. So I thought, what the heck? Let's talk about that on a show. Let's tell you how we come up with show topic ideas and help you guys to really understand what the process is that we undertake. How do we do this? So like I said, I've got the amazing Vickie Helm with me today. Pulled her on because not only is she amazing at coming up with show topics for shows, she's also great with book titles, with writing content. She's just very good at coming up with concepts and ideas and things that you can talk about that are in all sorts of different, I suppose, realms, genres, etc. So welcome back to the show. This is kind of like her second home here on Unlocked. Great to have you here.
It is. And I always like working with you. I always like talking to you. And I want to just say welcome everybody to, Unlocked. This is an opportunity right now, Tracy. This is an opportunity because I know that no matter what stuff happens, and one of the things that you can always count on is that sometimes content gets shuffled and we think we make a content plan and we're going to do this content and that content and this content and that content, and something happens to the content. And what happens is it's not necessarily the idea of what content you're going to put out, but maybe something happens in the world and people want you to speak on it. Like if there's an earthquake or a political thing or something happens, they want you to talk about it. And so how do you create the kind of content that you need for your clients, for your audience, and how do you build on it? It's an opportunity right now to be talking about this. This is a good topic.
And you make a really good point with that, Vic, because one of the things that, obviously when we're creating a show, so if you're somebody that's out there and you're wanting to build your business, then we're big advocates of doing your own show. Why? Because it gives you an opportunity to increase your level of experience, showcase what you know, bring to the forefront, your knowledge, your experience, the skills that you have, so on and so forth. So you get to showcase those in a really authentic and in the now kind of way. But also, really importantly, you need to make sure that when you're doing your show, that it's somewhat aligned to the product and or service that you are, that you provide. It makes absolute sense to do that, there is, some sort of alignment with that. And that's actually one of the things that we do to help people come up with their concepts and their ideas, because if your show is aligned to your product and or your service, it's a thing that you know it really intimately, you're passionate about that product or service that you have. It makes it easy for you to be able to speak. On the flip side of that, like Vic's talking about, is that there's also some opportunities to do some shows where you get to speak about what's going on in the world, what's topical, what's, maybe current affairs or events that are going on. And Vickie does that a lot on the Coffee Break show. So she's able to speak on, various different topics really, really easily. So there's a couple of different ways that you can do this that I've just kind of run through. One is totally align your show to a product and or a service, or also like Vic's talking about, is that you're aligning your show that's very much surrounded by what's going on in the world, and potentially even like what are some of the things that are happening that are on the edge, on the cutting edge. Maybe it's technology, or even just some common things that often we overlook in kind of our regular day-to-day. So I'll talk a little bit about the alignment to, your product and or service. And in today's show, Vic's also going to talk about what she does really, really well in her show, which is talk about some of the topical things that are going on. So we'll start with you, Vic. You can kind of give us a bit of an idea about how do you come up with the concepts and the ideas, and how do you look for, different things that are going on in the world, then you go, boom, that thing right there, a bit like a journalist does, right? That there is a topic or a concept or an idea that's actually going to be interesting for other people to listen to and they need to know about. How do you do that?
So part of what I do as a consultant is that I'm a futurist, full stop. And what ended up happening for me was, I just want to take a real world example. If you've been watching the Coffee Break show, it was every day, every day, every day. And about October through December of 2019, when the pandemic was not even heard of, a lot of people didn't know about it. We got on the Coffee Break show and we did we interrupt our regularly scheduled program to tell you that this pandemic is coming, that there'll be shortages that we're experiencing now, that there'll be, you want to make sure that you have backups of food and everything else because things are going to get expensive. We told everybody probably 4 or 5 months in advance what's going to happen. And part of that, number one, is that I research everything and I'm very aware of my places that I go to keep a pulse on what's happening in the world. So that's number one. Number two is I listen to my audience, because a lot of times in the feed, they'll tell you topics, or they'll ask a question, or they want to know more about this, or they make a statement about things they want to talk about and go into a deep dive of talking about it, not just having a conversation, but I want to have those tough conversations as well, so I will look for the tough conversation. I'll pull an expert on that tough conversation. We did that just with you with pulling Jennifer Hotchner on for trauma, and we're talking about that. So what happens is your audience is going to tell you. The next thing is I'm very woo-woo. I'm more woo-woo than most people know about. And what ends up happening is a lot of time I just surrender and I think, the divine has a topic for me to talk about today. And I take that divine topic, and when it happens, it just happens. But there is a plethora of ways to get content ideas. The most important way to get it for me is to pay attention to the moment and let the moment tell you what it wants to talk about.
That's really interesting. And even though you say, I'm woo-woo about this, I mean, that is one of those things that, when you sit with it for a moment, often those ideas will just drop into your head. I mean, and even today, right? So, I mean, the topic of today's show.
She does that a lot. She will just get an idea. Yeah.
I mean, that's how this came about. I mean, it is something that we get asked regularly, like, how do we do that? It's a big component within the programs that we teach, because we know that this is a piece that a lot of people can get stuck on. There's a myriad of different ways that you can do it, but often it's just kind of like sitting in that moment and say, well, okay, well, what am I supposed to talk about today? And then boom, that idea and the concept will come to you. So as far as like, we were talking about this a little bit earlier about the show, topics and concepts and ideas. And a lot of what I like to do is like, I do a lot of how-to type stuff. And the reason I do that is because often I'm looking for how to do things. And I know that when you're doing a show like this, you also want to think about your not just the show in its live format, but what's actually going to happen with that show after it's gone live. Obviously, it's out there. It's now becomes an evergreen type piece of material or content that will be re-listened to. So whenever I'm creating, shows like this, they are what sort of topics and what sort of content are people actually searching for? And I'm often thinking about what are they searching for even on the likes of YouTube? Because when we go live with these kinds of shows, we're streaming out to multiple different places at once.
That's right.
So the content that we're creating is actually the type of content that we want to be consumed in lots of different places, even after the show has aired live. So that's also something that I also take into consideration too.
I think that's so important. I want to tag on a little bit of that because one of the things is she's talking about having the correct mindset. So here's the reality. Everybody right now loves reality TV. I mean, actual TV is dying. Live shows and things are going on, and people love conversation. That's why The Talk, The View, PBS NewsHour, all of these talk shows that come at night, all of these things that are their talk shows are very, very big. And each day that they're on, they have to have these topics of conversation that are there constantly all the time. And you have an opportunity right now to have the mindset that you're not going to go Facebook Live, that you're actually broadcasting and not just doing a live show on Facebook Live.
Absolutely. And I think, like you say, that's a huge mindset shift. You know, when we're thinking about what is the purpose of me doing this and being very intentional with what you do. So, like, where am I going to be streaming? What am I going to be doing with this content in the here and the now? And then afterwards, what is how do I align it to, like I mentioned earlier, how do I align it to my product and service? How do I create something that is authentic and that I'm able to actually just show up and be me and do me without having to try and be somebody else? All of these things we take, are being taken into consideration, and obviously running through people's heads when they're thinking about what type of content do I want to create and how do I go about creating that? And then how do I do it on the regular so that I don't fall off the bandwagon and I'm like a 6-show wonder, for example. So you want to make sure that whatever it is that you're doing, and a lot of this comes down to that planning in the very early stages of you thinking about what type of show will I do? Because when you get that piece right and you spend enough time there, it actually does make it a lot easier for you to be able to create content further down the track.
And, it's funny because that seems counterintuitive, but it's not. It actually will make it easier for you to have longevity in your content. And the other thing is, it's not just the content plan. It's not just being able to go out there. It's what she mentioned there earlier about bringing your authentic self out to the conversation. That's one of the greatest things I like working and having Tracy as my partner. And even as we sit down, as business partners, she's not my life partner. She's got a husband. But I mean, even as we speak, well, you never know. It's a live audience. They could run with it, but she's my business partner. And the thing I like about that is that Tracy is Tracy 100% of the time, and Vickie is Vickie's 100% of the time. Like, if you were having dinner with us, this is what we would talk like. This is what we are and what we bring to the table. Part of the content that you're bringing is you. You see your content as well. You're not everybody's cup of tea, but you are somebody's cup of tea. Enough people will be attracted to just your personality and how you are and who you are. You're also content. It's how you bring your show as well. So if you take a look at it, Jimmy Fallon and, Conan O'Brien, 2 different ways to run a show, both successful. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Each one of them is a piece of content.
And that brings us to an interesting thing too, because again, that's something that a lot of people struggle with, right? They're like, oh, I've got to try and create something that looks like somebody else, where really what makes you stand out from everybody, and it almost like allows you to relax. And it is just bring you to the table. Don't
Yeah.
have to try and be anybody else. Just do you, because you are absolutely unique. And that's,
Mhm.
and like you say, you don't have to worry about trying to be everybody's cup of tea. You're not the smorgasbord. You are just there. You're there. You will attract the people that are attracted to you, and that's what you want. Because ultimately, down the track, you want
Yeah.
to be working with people that you like and they like you. I
Yeah.
mean, it's makes it,
So
it does
important.
make it
It
easier.
makes it more fun.
I
Yeah.
mean, I
And
know. Sorry, Vic, go ahead.
no, okay. The last thing I wanted to say about the show pieces that I think is so, so, so important is that when she was talking about you make that show for you and you coming up and you being authentic and you being you, because that's part of the content. It's and it's the delivery of the content that matters. And the other thing is that it's the friendship of it's your audience wants to feel your heart. And sometimes you're so busy giving information. You're so busy trying to teach them something or give them something or spell something out. Sometimes all your audience wants to do is connect with you. And so there are points through the show where, when we mess around or we play or we laugh or we giggle or we put up somebody else's comment so they can be in the conversation with us. The other thing is you want to include your audience when you're doing that, when you're talking to them. I mean, we do that a lot. We do that at the coffee break show. We have people up there and have a great time as well. And I think that's important to understand that your audience is not like TV where you're entertaining them 100% of the time. It's a conversation between you and your audience as well, which is the beauty of going to streaming live like this. It's the
Yeah.
beauty of that.
Well, no longer are we, like you're saying, no longer are we in that kind of digital space where it's just one way, one channel where we can speak at people. Now, with the
Yeah.
likes of platforms like we use, is that you can actually have an interactive conversation with people in the moment as you're doing the show. So that's what I
Yeah,
love
that's
about, I
outstanding.
love
Me
about this.
too.
I mean, obviously there's, sometimes like as far as like us creating ideas and concepts, for a show, Vickie sort of given you an
Yeah.
idea of some of the things that she does. Sometimes the divine or the, you just get messages that, hey, this is a topic that would be good. This is what you could talk about, and you run with that. Other times, you might need to sit down, and I have an ideas bank. I have a bank of, of at least 100 concepts and ideas that I could be talking about. So in the moment where, I get hit with, oh my God, I've got creator's block, or I just can't think of a concept or an idea. It doesn't happen very often now because your brain gets trained
Yep.
into thinking a certain way. But in
Yeah.
the early stages, I'd create myself this content ideas bank that I could just like kind of look at to pull up on my screen, go, oh, well, there's an idea and a concept that I could
Yeah.
run with today. So, I mean, that's always a great way to just have that safety net by creating yourself an ideas bank. One of the things that Vickie and I were talking about before we actually jumped on here, because we throw around a few different concepts and ideas, and I wanted to talk about this today. And often Vic will say, we also want to talk about things that are transformational, things that are like, maybe it's an experience that we've just had, or maybe something's just happened to you. Maybe you want to talk about, the reason that you want to have good friends in your life, those sorts of things. So there is a time, and there's obviously an opportunity for us to talk about anything you
Yeah.
want on your own show, but you can kind of go in a lot of different directions. So I wanted to make sure that in today's show that we actually made this quite fluid, that it wasn't just about like
Yeah.
how to step 1, step 2, step 3. And I do a lot of that on my show on Friday, because I want to make sure that not only do I give people like the concept, but I actually give them the steps to be able to do it.
Mhm.
And then often I'll give away something on a Friday, on my Friday show, which is a
Yeah.
downloadable tool, resource, et cetera, to make your guys' lives easier. But we also want to talk about some of those other kind of learning moments that we have, right, Vic? Like we're on this entrepreneurial journey. Every step of the way, life is like a constant unfolding of experiences and learnings and aha moments.
Yeah.
And those also form really great opportunities for us to talk about them, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think one of the things I really enjoy, and this is such an important thing for me, I want to be the example of when I go live. It's so, I know that we do a lot of teaching. People come to us all the time. We have programs on how to do this because, professionals come to us all the time and hire us for this. So anyway, I know all that. But one of the things that everybody is afraid of is to look stupid on camera. And so what happens there is they feel so vulnerable. They want everything to go perfect. And one thing about syndicated TV is that you can make everything perfect. It's not like you can, take a sip of coffee and dribble down and everybody's seeing you and now you have coffee stains down your shirt when you're on the coffee break show. Stuff happens on a live show where you have to be comfortable being vulnerable just right then. And I have been on the show. I had the day before a show, the night before a show, the death of one of my best friends happened. And I thought I could pass the show on to Tracy and she would have taken it. And I really thought, and I was like, no, let them see who you are. And that was a defining moment for me. So I got on and I told them, look, I'm not in the best of shape. I'm here with you this morning. Last night this happened. This is how I feel. This is what I went. And when you say something stupid or going through something painful, if you're out there and you're authentic and you're really vulnerable, your audience falls in love with you. I'm not kidding. They fall in love with you. They love that kind of vulnerability. So it's not about going live and having perfection, because that just doesn't happen. I've stumbled in my vocabulary and made funny statements. You have to be willing to let people see you, warts and all. And I think that now vulnerability isn't a weakness. Vulnerability is very endearing to other people, especially they trust you. You know what I mean? I think that's very important when you're taking a look at going live and creating content. Sometimes your screw up is the content, if you just royally screw up, which I have, then that becomes the content and it becomes a connection. It becomes the laugh. And I want to say that content comes out of the moment. It comes out of being planned. It comes out of you as a person, how you are when you show up to the show. These are all things that content is built upon.
Isn't it? I mean, it's funny because after, I don't know, I'm up to, I know you've done hundreds of shows. I think this particular show, Unlocked, I'm at about 112 odd episodes, and after doing it that many times, you go back and you start looking at some of your, your early shows, and it's like, you're trying to be really proper and get everything right. And then after a while, it's kind of like, ugh, you shake all that off and you kind of just show up and do your thing. And over time, you just become a lot more relaxed, a lot more less worried about, hey, I've got to show up and I've got to try and be something. You can actually just show up and be you, right?
Yes.
So and that happens over time. One of the funniest things, well, not funny, but one of the things I love about doing a show like this is the amount of personal transformation you get. And I've paid a lot of money to coaches and etc. to have, some form of personal transformation. But I can tell you the one thing that has created the most amount of personal transformation is actually showing up and having to do a show every single, twice a week. And in fact, I do 2 shows. So I do, a minimum of 3 shows a week, is the amount of transformation you get personally on so many levels. Have you found the same thing, Vic, in terms of like how much transformation you've had personally in doing it?
And I want to let you know, it's transformed everything. It's not just me personally. You confront all the blocks and things and stories and everything else. but it's transformed how I relate with people. It's transformed and grown more credibility. More people know me in places that I don't know them. Like I can go places and people are like, you know, I stopped in the grocery store. You're the coffee break show lady. And so that to me has been really cool. And also it has built an inner confidence where I'm not afraid to be seen or judged by others. It just, there's some sort of inner confidence that happens that you can talk about it all you want. Because I remember the first time I went live, I was so nervous I couldn't even look at the camera. And every one of our clients, I don't care how, I do not care how successful they are, because what we deal with is we deal with expertpreneurs, those elite experts who are starting to have a show that talks about their level of expertise. That's what we do when we get them started. We have this whole program they go through and everything else, and they get out there. And I don't care if they have been a professor at a university. I don't care if they have been a Fortune 500, top 50 Inc. company. I mean, we get those kinds of entrepreneurs. We have CEOs that have started pension funds from companies. We have the biggest people in the world working with us. And what ends up happening is the first time they go live, everybody's a little bit nervous. It just kind of happens because it's live. It's not that syndicated. It's not, you know, it's that live. And the thing about going live is it's not like being on stage where you're at a place and there's a certain amount of audience and you know how big the audience is. When you're live and it goes around the world, like I have people who get up and they live in Fiji and they're watching the show at 4:30 in the morning because they watch the show. You know what I mean? This is big time. You have an impact on the whole world when you go live. And so the first time you go live, everybody's just frozen up. I don't care how much that is. The confidence now that I have after getting over that and having to troubleshoot some things, that confidence has made me so much more grounded as a CEO. Like, you know, okay, here's something else. We'll just take care of it. You know, it's amazing what kind of confidence builder it is. It's unbelievable.
Totally agree. Like I said, I mean, I think this has been like one of the most transformational things. And the beauty about this is it's very much working on your inner game. Like Vickie alluded to this. She said, you know, you're working on your confidence. You know, that's all internal stuff.
Yeah.
And that's what you have to do every single time you front up and you push, you know, go live. You are working on your internal dialogue. You're working on that inner game constantly, because when you show up here, you know, yes, there might be times where you're vulnerable. Yes, there might be times where, you know, shit happens, where things have gone wrong, and you're showing up and you're talking about those experiences, right? But somehow every single time you do it, you've got to find somewhere within you that you show up and there's a level of positivity about you. There's a level of, because even though people want to see, you know, it's vulnerable, they want to see that there's possibility, that there's opportunity, that there is, you know, that they're inspired by something, and it's somehow you're transforming yourself into being somebody who is going to be inspiring, that is going to motivate somebody else to take action, to do something different, and you're doing that every single time you share your experiences.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to talk about, Vic, is the importance of like having the right kind of people around you, because like you said, this can be quite vulnerable, and a lot of people shy away from doing this. When I say this, I mean going live, I mean pushing a live button, talking to whoever the heck is going to listen in the world, with a certain amount of fear that what are people going to say? What are they going to think of me? You know, all of those sorts of things are constantly in our minds. So with that, how do we deal with that? What advice would you give to somebody to deal with their fear of judgment?
No, that's such a great question. And I want to answer that in two parts. Earlier in the pandemic, when the pandemic started and we were all on lockdown and nobody could go to their offices, all of a sudden, everybody was at home working from home. And one of the viral videos that went on YouTube was this CBS reporter, and he was in his house, in his office, and he was on live with CBS, and they were live showing, and he was reporting, and his toddler opened the door and was like, "Daddy," and just started walking up to him just like that. It's just happening. You know, major newscast, major news story, big broadcasting company. And his wife was like, "Oh my God, I gotta get the baby." So she dropped to her knees and was trying to walk to grab the baby. And you could see her in the background trying to struggle to get the baby out. And you could see him kind of like, you know, we're doing this, we're doing that. And you kind of just have to let it happen. But the most important thing about it was that it was just in the moment, real life, where there is a piece of humanness. And the first way you have to be over being judged is to just know that you're not going to be everybody's cup of tea. And I know there are haters out there because, oh my gosh, I've gotten a few people who have made fun of me in like several ways. I've even gotten instant messages like, you know, how full of it I am, or so to speak. But I don't look at those. My mindset looks at only those people that I'm helping, One of the most important things we can do to help ourselves not be judged is take off our masks. And what do I mean by take off our masks? It's like, this is me and this is who I am. And somebody says, "Well, you screwed up today." I did screw up today. And it made me feel like this. And I was kind of feeling stupid. And I felt this big screwing up today. But then I had a laugh. I had to laugh at myself and blah, 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 blah. And so what happens is I don't disagree with them. I don't shy away from it. I don't, you know, that one piece of your mindset is to be present with the screw up. And a lot of people find it endearing. But I will tell you what they will watch that will make or break you. And that is how you respond. Like if that CBS guy didn't gently, like if he pushed his toddler out of the way and baby was like, "Ah!" he probably would have been judged very harshly for that. But instead he was like, "Here's my toddler. I am on CBS." And the kid was cute. It was like, "Daddy," you know, I mean, who's not going to take that as something cute? Something like that is going to happen. I've seen the worker where the cat jumped on the keyboard and just all of a sudden the tail is in front of the face. It's going to happen. You're going to have people judge you. The second thing is watch what you are saying to yourself. Because here's what I know about my show. I know it is divinely given to me. It is not just something, I am the ambassador of the Coffee Break Show. And what I talk about that to have an impact on the world, to make a difference in people's lives, to cheer them up. It's like Tracy is the ambassador of the Unlocked Show. And what she wants you to do is live your life unlocked. Live your life having the life that you want, what you dream. That's a divinely given purpose. So anytime you go live, you're stepping into your purpose. You're saying, "This is my purpose." And if it's your purpose to be going live, you got to know that you are stepping into your purpose. And at first, those are big steps. And after a while, you will understand that you are supported by something greater than what you think. You're supported by something that is greater than what you think. And when you step in with that consistency starts mattering, so that you're not like Tracy said earlier, a 6-show dropout. You're actually consistently building it because there's purpose to what you're doing. Purpose can push you through anything. It'll get you through the hard times, the tough times, the learning curve, and everything else you need.
Something I learned, just going to go back to sort of this fear of judgment, something I learned a couple of years ago, and I was actually doing a program with somebody else. It was a personal transformational program, and he was talking about the fact that a lot of people are stunned or are stopped in their tracks because they are afraid of what other people are going to say. They're afraid of other people judging. And it was really interesting because he got everybody to do a few exercises. And what you actually realized when you went through these exercises was that, you know what, humans are human judging machines. We judge, whether you like it or not, we are constantly judging everything. So, and that's just the way in which our human brain is wired, is to judge. And we're doing that to determine whether or not something is, whether we should actually be fearful of it. Should we be running right now because I've got a big hairy mammoth, chasing after me? So there's a lot of the brain that's actually programmed to judge things. And when you realize that that is just part of human nature. It doesn't matter whether you want it to happen or not. People are going to judge you. And until such time as you kind of come to the realization that that's the way things are, that's the way people are programmed, you're going to continue to be stuck in that realm. And like Vickie had mentioned, we probably should say not their cup of tea, but not everybody's cup of coffee. So
that's right.
You're just not everybody's cup of coffee. It's just the way it is. So now we've kind of got that out of the road. Again, fronting up and coming up with content and concepts for shows. There are times where we might come up with a concept or an idea and it just like falls flat on its face. Like,
oh gosh, yeah.
It didn't run so good. That didn't go the way that I wanted it to go. And like you say, there's often times where, we may have got some negative feedback. We might have got a troll or, and all of these, often that sort of feedback you get, you can take that on board and be quite, allow that to impact you and you become that 6-show wonder because somebody said something negative and I don't want to do that anymore. And now I'm afraid. So you move from that being confident and I'm ready to go to, shoot, now I'm like I want to just hide under a blanket and never come out because now I'm afraid to do this because I've been burnt. When that happens, what are some of the things that we can do to help ourselves move beyond that, move beyond those moments of somebody said something bad about me? How can I move forward?
Okay, that to me, this is super important. This is one of the most important things because here's the thing about it. If you're a troll, you're not looking for somebody online who has no audience. You're looking for somebody who has the biggest audience, who's out there, who's got a name for themselves. A troll doesn't get any juice by, trolling people that nobody knows or nobody cares about, right? So I always we tell our team, we tell our clients, when you get your first troll, that's like when you're starting to hit the big time. It's something to celebrate to me. I mean, when I got my first troll, and I'm going to tell you what it was, okay? Because I want to be as transparent as possible. There was a troll who got the coffee break show, and they imposed the coffee break show with a face of John Candy. And John Candy's a big dude. He's a fat dude and he has big cheeks. He had this, they found a shot where it looked like this. And it said the coffee break show underneath it. And at first I laughed because it's John Candy. And I get they were making fun of them, my size or whatever else it was. And I thought, oh my God, I got my first troll. Because that meant that the show was starting to seep in and go places. So the first things first, let's talk about what a troll really does. Have you ever heard that saying, there's no such thing as negative press? Okay, that's really true. There's no such thing as negative press, whether it's a troll or somebody else. Now, there is something as a negative feeling. And so the more you're attacked by a troll or people that want to engage and just be ruthless. Now, if they're cussing and they're making your audience feel good, just delete them. Just get them out of there. That's easy. But if you have a point where you have trolls afterwards who are commenting afterwards, it's because your popularity is starting to meet the need they have. Trolls have to find popular people to troll. They can't troll non-popular people. And at one point, when you see that and you understand that, there's also something called a review bomb. A review bomb is also, it happens a lot in publishing. And so since you guys see all the books we publish, there you go. So when you start taking over a category with your new book, they will hire a professional review bomber who will go in, buy your book, and professionally write a review bomb just to drop it down a little bit more so that, however many review bombs, so that your book looks like it's not as good as it is. And so their book stays on top of it. Well, they do that with shows too. I mean, there's review bombs for that kind of show. You cannot take this personally. First thing, if you're taking it personally, you don't understand the industry of trolling. Second thing, trolling and review bombing is an industry. People write reviews about products so they can just drop the product down and make their product rise. It's an ugly bit that just happens on there. So let's say you get a really bad review. So what? So what? How many people have you helped? How many bad reviews have you had?
Exactly. So and I think the other thing we were talking about was the importance of having really good people around you. Making sure, like when you're going to start your show, you want to, get yourself a bit of a, we call them a cheerleading team. Get yourself some supporters. They're going to be there to support you when you start going live.
Show with you. That's really right.
Important. That way they're there and they're able to obviously support you, give you some feedback, just let you know that, hey, there are actually people watching. It's okay. All those sorts of things are really important, but also just having good people around you that build you up, like knowing who you want to keep in your inner circle, and
that's a big one.
Almost ruthless about who you allow into that space.
No, I want to go back to that because I'm sorry. I'm used to going this way because I'm usually where you are, but this way, this way. I want to go back to that point. It's true. You want to be ruthless with who is in your inner circle. One of the things about being a show host is you have to really manage your want to belong. Okay, everybody wants to belong, but when you are a show host, you become a leader right away. People want to get onto your show, and you have to be that filter, that gateway between who's coming on, how they represent your show, and that inner circle of people that you have, that inner circle, that tight group that they'll go to the mat for you, and you're going to go to the mat for them. That is invaluable. And I want to say, Tracy is that for me. And I want to say, before we were business partners, I called her up and I said, look, I want you to be on my show when it very first started years ago. And I did the coffee break show for about 18 months before I invited my first guest on. Tracy was the second guest I had on. And I was like, hey, you want to do the show? Now, Tracy is in Australia. And the coffee break show for me at that time was at 10 a.m. For her, it was 2 a.m, almost 3 a.m, I think. And she got up at 3 a.m. and got on that show with me. Now that's a friend. Like, how many friends will you get up at 3 a.m. to be on their show? And from that point on, that inner circle that you have, that you surround yourself with, that's going to establish your credibility. It's going to establish your mindset. It's going to establish your attitude. It's going to establish part of your confidence. That thing that you just said, Tracy, I think is the most important thing. Not everybody can be your friend. You don't have to belong to everyone. You don't have to have that feeling of belonging. You can, a group of friends that are in that inner circle. Oh, that's one of the most important things to success all around, but especially with a show.
Absolutely. Well, on that note, Vic, I think I'm going to circle back, give everybody a bit of a recap on what we've talked about today, because I said to you at the beginning, we would talk about lots of different things. We're just going to go with the flow wherever, the show kind of takes us. But the whole intention of this show was like to help people to understand, hey, you can get up here and you can do a show too. You just have to be, you just got to front up and be you. So if you can be you can be a show host, right? So if you can be you can be a show host. It's just a matter of saying, I can do this and I'm going to do it and actually doing it. So that's the first thing. And then secondly, not being afraid that, hey, I'm not going to be able to come up with concepts or ideas, because you just need to allow it to flow. You can do it a number of different ways. Like Vic said, you can talk about, what's topical in the moment, or you can also use your show very strategically and align it with your product and or your service, and then pull concepts and ideas from what it is that you do and what you offer, and you bring them forward and talk about them inside of your show. Also, I gave you the concept of using the ideas vault, the ideas bank. So just coming up with a whole lot of different concepts and ideas and having them handy for you. And again, you can also use guests. Having guests on your show, it does take a little bit of the pressure off, because you're talking about the topic that they are an expert in. So it really does, that does make things a little bit easier to do. Or you can find a really good friend like I have. I've got Vickie that I can say, hey, want to do a show together? So periodically throughout the year, we'll jump on and we'll just do, a show together. Bringing somebody else on that you can just have some good conversation with, banter back and forth with, is also a really, makes for a good show. And of course, Vickie also mentioned you can do the type of show that is, really engaging with your audience, talking with your audience, bringing their comments onto the show, and just making sure that, you're involving them in the conversation, and then also taking note of what sort of questions they're asking, because that provides you with, what could I talk about next? Well, so-and-so on my previous show asked about this, so maybe that would be a great topic. So today, hopefully we've given you loads and loads of different concepts and ways that you can come up with content for your shows. And also we've talked about a few other different things that have been things that hold people back from doing this. Both Vickie and I are huge advocates for this. We love seeing people go live and talking about their expertise. We love helping people to get to find the confidence within themselves to be able to show up and do this. And a lot of it is process driven. It's processes and it's systems. And once you learn, a few, I'm going to say not basic, but intermediate things, you can make a really, really good episode. So that being said, I want to thank everybody for being here today. I'm going to be back again on Friday with another episode of Unlocked. And on Friday, like I normally do, I'll have something good to give you guys away. And you'll be able to, download my freebie. And it will help you too to be able to either live your life unlocked in success in your business, your family, or your life, or it's also going to help you to create your own live show like this, because like I said, we're huge advocates of this. So thanks very much for joining me. Thank you so much, Vic, for being here. It's always a pleasure to have you on the Unlocked show. And I'm going to be back again, like I said, Friday, 10 a.m. for another episode. Thanks very much, everybody. Have a fantastic week. Go ahead, live your life unlocked, because as you know, there is just no other way. We'll see you guys again on Friday. Bye for now.